in the maktab, which is basically the primary school. The primary school was known as the maktab in 1400 years ago. So that's why you have maktab resource, because we are talking about primary Islamic education for our children. Then you go under this link here. If you click on this link, it brings you to this page, which is basically the entire program. But here we'll just click on the maktab program. Anyway, I'm not going to give you the details, but I'm just going to take you to this file here. This is Muslims who migrated to that file. Now the entire title of the thing is Muslims who migrated to non-Muslim majority countries, which is basically most of us who weren't born here, we migrated, right? Most of us who weren't born here, we migrated. Now, before I go to the story, I want to mention one hadith. And I'm pretty sure some of you know the reference of the hadith. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that actions depend upon intention. وَإِنَّمَا لِإِمْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى, a person will receive that which he intended. Does anyone know what is the hadith, continuation of the hadith after that? Jazakallah khairan. So look, we have to understand the context of the hadith, that when a hadith was mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ, what was the topic of discussion? The topic of discussion was hijrah. What is the meaning of hijrah? Migration. And in Islam, the calendar of the Muslims started from the migration of the Prophet ﷺ from Mecca to Medina. So the migration is the most important, one of the most important benchmarks of the Muslim Ummah. And our calendar, every time we look at the calendar, it reminds us that we Muslims are a nation of migration, because our very Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a man who migrated. And he did not just migrate, my brothers and sisters. He migrated from the best place of the earth. That is not easy. One is you migrate from one place to another place. Okay, no problem. Maybe this one is a little bit colder, that one was a little bit hotter, this one has a little bit more money, less money. No. He was forced to migrate from the best place on the earth, which is Makkah al-Mukarramah, which is the house of Allah, the Kaaba, the first house of the world. And then he migrates to Medina, and it's known as the Hijrah. And later on, the Muslim Ummah, the Umar radiallahu anhu, with consensus of the companions, he came to the agreement that Islamic calendar starts from migration. So coming back to the hadith, that means that we Muslims, that this story tells us we Muslims will always migrate. And you might probably wonder that why do Muslims migrate so much? There is actually a very different way of looking at it. You see, do you think any other prophet will come until the day of Qiyamah? No, right? That's our belief. Our belief is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the last prophet. After him, no prophet will come until the day of Qiyamah. So if no prophet is coming after the Prophet ﷺ until the Qiyamah, then who is responsible for continuing the effort of da'wah? Who is responsible? We are, yes. We are. Allah will never send a time where no one is given the responsibility of da'wah. When Prophet ﷺ left the world, he gave us, every single person, and he said, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. If you know one hadith from me, one ayah from me, one kalima from me, you make sure you pass it on to someone. Because that is within your capacity. That is why if we see something wrong happening, the hadith says that you have to command good. You have to forbid evil. It's a hadith. And the hadith says if you stop commanding good and you stop commanding evil, a time will come, Allah will appoint a tyrant ruler over you, and that person will have no mercy upon you. To the extent that you will make dua against him, your dua will also not be accepted. That's how serious the matter of commanding good and forbidding evil is, which falls under the category of da'wah. Anyway, the system of Allah Ta'ala is, because Allah wants Islam to reach every corner of the world and every island of the world, so pretty much our Muslim brothers and sisters who have traveled around the world, they said that we have never come to a country or to an island where we did not find at least one Muslim. Why? So that the people of that island cannot stand before Allah on the day of Qiyamah and say, oh Allah, that you never sent someone to us to tell us what is Islam. So Allah has distributed our rizq, our sustenance, in a manner that we Muslims will always spread out over the world. Anyway, coming back to the hadith. The hadith was of intention, and the hadith is actually connected with hijrah, migration. What is the hadith? فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. If you migrated from one country to another country for the sake of finding Allah or pleasing Allah and His Prophet ﷺ, basically for the intention of da'wah, right? For the intention of da'wah, because how else can you please Allah the most and please the Prophet ﷺ most unless your intention was, I want to go there and be a representative of Islam in that land. فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, then his hijrah will be considered to have been done for Allah and His Prophet ﷺ. However, وَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِدُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أَوْ إِمْرَأَةٌ يَنْكِحُهَا فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. If you migrated, you moved from one country to another, one state to another state, you migrated, but your intention was what? For some material benefit, any benefit of this world, or to marry a woman, and for a woman to marry a man, is vice versa. Then what? Then the hadith is فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. Then your hijrah, your migration will be for what you migrated. That means when you go there, you will find the woman to marry, you will find the man to marry, and you will get whatever world you wanted. Now you're probably wondering that why am I bringing this hadith? I want us to go back a couple of years. Not very long ago, when we were in another land and we were thinking that we were going to go to America. Those of us who migrated. And when we thought about going to America, we had a mental vision that when we go there, we are going to get a good job, we are going to buy a house, we're going to have a nice car. And pretty much anyone who came to America maybe 20 to 30 years ago, today they own a nice house, they own a nice car, and their kids are most likely making more money than they made when they came here. So can you see how accurate this hadith is? فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. Then his migration will be for what he intended. Now, my respected brothers and sisters, we cannot change what we did in the past. But today we can change our intention and make sure we don't repeat the mistake for our future. One thing we can do is if we live far away from the masjid, we can say, you know what, I want to move from that place near the masjid so that I can pray my 5 times salah there and I can attach my family with the activities of the masjid, the educational programs, the different functions that happen from the masjid. Then the past we cannot do something, but now with the present we can change that. And this small migration from 5 miles away, 10 miles away to near the masjid, that will now be for the sake of Allah, and we will see Allah's results. Allah will show us the results, inshallah. Now the negative side. What is the negative? When a Muslim migrated to this land and his intention was the fancy house, the nice car, marrying a beautiful wife, that was his vision. What was the result? And that's what I'm going to show you today. So this post was basically a writing, which there is actually a video also, which was done by the granddaughter of Sheikh Ali Tantawi. Any of you who have some affiliation to Syria and Sham know who he is. He was one of the greatest scholars of Syria, Sheikh Ali Tantawi. So the granddaughter, her name is Sister Mu'mina. She's quite senior, she's about in her 70s now. She says that my grandfather, Sheikh Ali, was wise enough to prevent us from going through with our immigration process to Canada. About 50 years ago, the entire family, they received a PR. The PR is the permanent residency to move to Canada. Sheikh Ali Tantawi, after he heard this and he saw the whole family was getting ready to go, he called them all and he said, listen, my children, please don't go. He tried to stop them. Our children were still young back then. I myself, the granddaughter is saying, I myself was skeptical about his reasoning, and my ego as a young parent made me jump to the assertion that my grandfather was too strict and he wanted to control. Do you understand? Many of us young people, when an elderly person says something, we think that, oh, he's just trying to control me. It happens a lot. So she says, I had the same idea at that time. Then she says, may Allah have mercy on him. Why does she say that? Because now she's going to mention why. She says, now I tend to agree with the wise decision my grandfather Ali Tantawi rahimahullah made. Whenever I come across a story of people whose children lost Islam, whenever I come across a story in North America of people, Muslims, whose children, they lost Iman. Why? Because of the environment and the busy life of the West. Why did Sheikh Ali said don't go to Canada? He said at that time to choose to live in a land where Muslims are minority, non-Muslims are majority, leads to losing your children. What did he say? He was looking at his history because he saw the history behind him. And Muslim migration is, as I told you, it's not something new. We have been migrating for the last 14 centuries. We're a nation of migration. Muslims as a nation is a nation of migration. They have always been migrating. They went from Makkah to Medina, Medina to Kufa, Kufa to Yemen, Yemen to Iraq, then from there to West Africa, then from there to Turkey, and on and on. Habasha. That was the first migration, was Habasha. First migration was Habasha. So he said that when you choose to live in a land where the Muslims are minority, you are actually leading your children to losing Islam. Then he mentioned, if you are somehow able to protect your children, you can never guarantee to protect your grandchildren. If you somehow protect your children, you can never guarantee to protect your grandchildren. And then their grandchildren. Then he mentioned something which was the most important thing. He said, do not carry the responsibility of your children, grandchildren losing Islam. Do not carry the responsibility of your children, grandchildren losing Islam. Now, my respected brothers and sisters, let me ask you a question. All of us came from some background where we had a large Muslim population, right? Can you tell me, when did Islam enter into our countries? No one can, right? No one can. Because it could have been 1400 years ago, it could have been 1300, it could have been 1200 years ago. It could have been 1000 years ago. Imagine 1000 years, 1 century, no, 1 millennium. 1 millennium, 1000 years. The great grandfather is a Muslim, the grandfather is a Muslim, the father is a Muslim, the son is a Muslim, the grandson is a Muslim, the great grandson is a Muslim. 14 generations, not a single man, not a single woman lost Islam. Not 14 generations, that would be at least 40 to 50 generations if Islam came at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But then she's going to mention a story of what happened within 100 years of Muslims migrating to a non-Muslim majority country. And remember, I'm not just talking about America. America has even more challenges. I'm talking about generally any country where the Muslims are a minority. Now here, look. She says, I remembered everything my grandfather had said to us when I came across a post by a friend where someone told me if I had enough money, I would migrate to America instead of Turkey. And then that person mentioned it will never affect me or my family where I migrate. What is important is how I raise them. It is not where I raise them, it is how I raise them. Then she says, I had to warn that person that the place is indeed important. And then I began to tell that person my own personal experience. Who's giving the experience? Sheikh Ali Tantawi's granddaughter, Sister Mu'mina. Remember this, it's very important. She says, 9 years ago, I was tasked to investigate the family history of the Ramadan family from Beirut. Beirut is basically the main city of Lebanon, which is a Muslim majority country, or was once upon a time. She says that I began with the family tree and searched online for all the family members all over the world. I found 5,000 members of the Ramadan, one family from Beirut, Lebanon, Muslim family. Because Ramadan obviously is a Muslim family. And then she says, here is the statistic that I want to show you today. And this is very important. I want you to remember this. It's very important. She says, Muslims who migrated 100 years ago, 96%, how much? 96% of their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren had left Islam. How many years? 100 years. 80 years ago, 75%. 60 years ago, 40%. 40 years ago, 25%. Now, my respected brothers and sisters, please understand, we are talking about a time 100 years ago, I don't think even the TV existed. There was no TV. 60 years ago, there was no internet. There was no atheism, liberalism, feminism, LGBT movement. There was none of these. The universities and the colleges, they did not challenge the young men to question their religion and the religion of their forefathers, to question Allah. It wasn't there. All this happened in the last 50 to 60 years. Even then, within 100 years, the generation was gone. Anyway, then she mentions another story. She says, 80 years ago, a great scholar of Sham migrated to Ecuador and built the first masjid in Ecuador. You guys know where Ecuador is? Where is Ecuador? South America, yes. So she says that Sheikh, this scholar from Sham, from Syria, he moved to Ecuador and he built the first masjid there. This Sheikh was very serious, so he insisted on teaching his children Quran, the fundamentals of Islam, and he made sure that he raised them as Muslims. But Sister Mu'mina says, today, 80 years later, not a single one of his grandchildren are Muslim, not a single one. Then she tells her own personal experience. She says, personally, me, my life, she's talking about her life, personally, among the 48 of my grandfather's grandchildren who are currently in North America, Canada, America, 16 are not Muslims. Brothers and sisters, do the math. From 48, what is 16%? 16 from 48, what is 16 in percentage? About 33. About 33, yes. From her own personal life, she's still alive and breathing. She didn't die. It's not a history. Her own life and her family who had migrated with her. 16 out of 48 had left Islam. And then she said, we live in the United States and I have been an American citizen for the last 40 years. Then she says that in Ecuador there are 98 members of the Ramadan family. The forefathers migrated in 1923. Now all 98 grandchildren are Christians. Then she talks about one of the members she met and she took them to Turkey to show them their history. And here, once you go to this, you can actually see the Facebook post by Sheikh Utaybi and also the YouTube link where the sister speaks about it in Arabic. If you understand Arabic, you can take a look at it. Now, let me show you something which was done by Americans, right? I showed you something which was done by Sister Mu'mina, a Muslim. Now I'm going to show you something which was done by the Americans. Basically, we have something called the PEW. I'm not sure if you heard about it. It's an official research center which does surveys on different things. Their objective is to improve things, so they do surveys. So the PEW Research Center, they did a survey. And here is a survey. They said that about a quarter of adults who were raised as Muslims, 23% no longer identify as members of the faith. That's basically the PEW research. About 23 to 25% currently, Muslim kids who were born and raised with Muslim parents. Both parents were Muslims. They were immigrant Muslims and they were born and raised in America. They don't call themselves Muslims anymore. The reason why we don't see it is because in America you have lots of non-Muslims coming into Islam. So the amount we are losing from our own children, we are gaining through the reverts. They're coming in and it's balancing them out. And because immigration is open, because we have constant influx of Muslim immigrants into America, that is why you see the masjids are flourishing. But if you really want to know the condition of the Muslim youth, then just on the day of Jum'ah, which is the most important day of the week, a salah which is so important that if you miss 3 consecutive Jum'ahs, the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a stamp is put on the person's heart, and that heart can no longer accept the truth. On any given Friday, any masjid, not our masjid, any masjid, I want you to look and count the number of youth that are inside the masjid on Fridays, Jum'ah. I don't think you'll be very happy. The reason why the masjid is full is because we have lots of immigrant Muslims. And no, you could hurt them, beat them up, you can't stop them from coming for Jum'ah. They will come for Jum'ah. And then we see the number of Muslims in the masjid, we see the masjid full, like, mashallah, we are doing really good. No, my brothers and sisters, we're not doing really good. If you don't see the youth, you're not doing really good. I'm giving you an example. It happened about 50 to 60 years ago. A masjid in England, they requested their township to give them, allocate more space for them so they could expand the masjid. So the township, they sent inspectors to the masjid, and after the inspector came on a Friday actually. Then they went back and they rejected the extension. So they asked them that, but your inspector came, you saw we were overpacked, we don't have space inside the masjid. So the inspector said, listen, when we went inside, we saw that everyone was over 45, 50 years old. There was no one who was between the age of 15 and 35. That means that within 10 years, when all these people, they leave the world, you will be fine with the space you have. You don't need more space. Did you understand my point? Who is saying this? The township in England. That was a long time ago. Things have changed since then. And today we're going to discuss how things changed and how we're going to change it here too, inshallah. And I need you guys to be with me and pay attention how we discuss, point by point. Because every single one of you has a role to play, inshallah. We all play our role, inshallah, we will be able to create something in which we can hope. We cannot guarantee. We can hope, inshallah, that our generation will be saved. And that is our topic today, right? How to save our generation or our family, which is the most important thing in our life. Now, let's talk about environment. Do you guys know, or can you explain to me, where do Muslim children and youth, where do they spend their time? Go ahead, you can tell me. Where do they spend their time? How many hours in school? 7 to 8 hours? Yeah. After school, then what do they do? When school is done, then where do they spend their time? Home? What did someone say? Internet, yes. Here, let me show you. This is Microsoft Bing. In Microsoft Bing, I searched how much time kids spend on the internet. You could search it too, but don't search it now, search it later. Now you'll lose attention. Look, I'll do enter again, look. Just to make sure that you know that I'm not making something up. How many hours, brothers, you guys work in a week? Tell me, honestly. 40 hours. Then tell me, how many hours do the kids spend on the internet? Tell me. Look, tell me. 45 hours. Now tell me, you are telling me that your kids have an IT job? No, they have to have it. I mean, they're giving 44 hours a week, brother. They're giving 44 hours a week. Definitely they have some type of a job. I mean, no one spends that much time on something unless they're getting paid for that. I wouldn't spend that much time on something if I wasn't getting paid. Unless it was for Allah, of course, that's different. All of you would do that, alhamdulillah. I'm happy we're talking to a group of people who are concerned about the future. So that means that what are they doing 44 hours a week? What are they doing on the internet? Do you have any idea? Mostly games. And? Huh? Homework is just a fragile fraction. It's a small fraction. Honestly speaking, even the top schools of America, when we actually looked at the homeworks of the kids, we saw that it doesn't take more than 2 hours to finish the homework. Even the top schools, normal schools, half an hour. Top schools, not more than 2 hours. If you're focusing. Yeah, if you're going to do one text message, then you're going to play a little bit games, then you're going to take a phone call, then you're going to go to the kitchen and drink some milk. Of course, it's going to take you 5 hours. That's different. But if you are focusing on your homework, it doesn't take more than 2 hours. For most, it's 1 hour. So even if they have online homework, it should not take more than 1 hour. If you divide 44.5 into 7 days or 5 days a week, if you take out the weekends, that's roughly about 8 hours a day, right? That's basically a calculation which was even done by the American Heart Research Association. They also said you'll get it under Net Nanny. If you search under Net Nanny is basically they tell you how to work around saving your kids from the harms of the internet. And there they mention a research by the American Heart Association, which said that American kids, youth, young kids, from between 8 and 24, they were spending about roughly 8 hours a day on the internet. Now, I'll tell you what they're doing. First of all, they're looking at other people enjoying their lives. They're looking at other people enjoying their lives. How? Because people, they show one face on social media, and in real they have a different face. Their social media face shows like they're like the prince. If you walk into their house, you'll see what they actually are. So they show them, they highlight and beautify their life and said, look how I'm enjoying my life. And they do video after video after video. Now, if I ask you another question, do you know what is the most trending app currently for videos? TikTok. TikTok, yes, it's TikTok. He's right, mashallah. He's very smart, mashallah. May Allah make you a hafiz of Quran and an alim of deen. So you use your, mashallah, intelligence for the sake of goodness of the community. Say Ameen. Don't be afraid, say Ameen. Do you know why TikTok is so famous? Because the videos in, yeah, go ahead. What do you think is so famous? Huh? No, it's famous because the videos in TikTok are between 30 seconds and 50 seconds. Nowadays, if you look 10 years back, when you were doing a workshop, they would tell you, a teacher's workshop, they would tell you that average kids, they don't have attention span more than 5 minutes. So whatever you want to teach them, make sure you teach them in 5 minutes. And then change the topic and go back to your original topic and again focus 5 minutes, because that's their attention span. Nowadays, over the last 10 years of social media and 6 to 7 hours, especially from COVID made it worse. It made it worse. Before that, maybe they were doing 1 or 2 hours a day. Even we have the data from before COVID and after COVID. Before COVID, it was 2 hours, 1.5 hours a day. After COVID, that became 6 to 8 hours a day. Just 4 or 5 years was able to decrease the attention span from 5 minutes to only 30 seconds. Can you see what physical damage we did to our children? In one research, they said that 23% kids, youth, they feel that they are addicted to the internet. That means if you take away the internet for them from even a couple of hours, then they start getting frustrated. Just like a person on drugs starts craving for drugs, he will hit and hurt and even kill someone when he goes high. The kids, they go into a frustration craze and they completely, anyone around them goes crazy. Then you realize why? Because he doesn't have internet on his hands for that couple of hours. So what was my original question? Where are our children spending their time? All of you agreed that they spend 7 hours or 8 hours in school. Then we all came to the conclusion that they do spend about 7 to 8 hours on the internet. So how much time they have for sleeping? And then eating, and then using the bathroom, and fulfilling their basic needs, and completing the homework, and the other necessities of life, how much time they have? That leaves them with less than 8 hours. So that means they're sleep deprived, they're healthy food deprived, socializing with people that matter, family, they're deprived. The only education they're getting is from the school, which from grade 1 is allowing your kid to choose what gender they are and teaching them names of different parts of the body, which once they search on the internet, then it takes them to those websites which you know what happens. It's very interesting. The LGBT agenda will teach them the names. And the same grade in the science class, they will say that don't teach your kids these names because they are too young to understand them. The same year, first grade science book is telling don't teach them the names. but the LGBT curriculum is teaching them the names. First grade. How do you explain that? How does that even make logical sense? Unknowingly, without realizing, we are putting our kids there for 7 hours a day. And we're thinking that our kids are becoming educated. And then when they come from school and they're busy on their laptop, on the phone or something, we think that they're doing homework. So we leave them be. You should see what they're doing. I don't think your kids will give you their password. I don't think so. No offense to the kids, huh? I'm not trying to get you guys in trouble. Don't worry. I'm trying to help you guys out. You'll understand later, inshallah. I'm trying to help you guys out. Now, if imagine a boy who's not praying Jum'ah, 7 hours in that environment which is highlighting the gender more than they're highlighting academics, and then the philosophy is atheism, not believing in God, because they separated religion and education a long time ago. And then you come home and they throw them onto the internet where they can do technically anything they want. Before we used to say TV is so bad. And we would make sure that we don't let our kids go to certain channels. Now you can do one search and you can go into most horrible things in the world in the palm of your hands. But because the screen is my way, it's not your way. I could be talking to you and I could be doing something wrong. So what is the result? The result is our kids are performing poorly even in school. They're not doing their optimum best. Because Muslim kids are very smart. They have iman. If they put their mind and study properly, for them to beat Harvard is nothing. I can guarantee you. Any Muslim kid who comes from a decent family, decent structure, husband, wife is together, they're happy. If they put their minds to it, beating Harvard is nothing for a Muslim kid. So, this is damaging them even in their academic education. It is damaging them in their emotional and physical growth because you're so stuck on pixels on the screen that you don't have time to think outside. They're thinking it for you and putting it in front of you. And TikTok, 30 seconds, they're putting 30-second videos. When you scroll down, even a Facebook page, you will see the videos are 30 seconds, 40 seconds. And then if you stay on one video for 10 seconds, they program you, and then they'll send you similar types of video from Facebook so that you keep on watching. And hours and hours and hours are going. That is the reality. So, my question to you is, after going through this environment, don't you agree it is a miracle that they still believe in Allah? If you ask me, I would say it is a miracle that they still believe in Allah. We are extremely lucky. For some reason, Allah has had rahmah and mercy upon us, that even after going through this environment, our kids still believe in Allah. But we have not fulfilled our responsibility as a parent. We chose to come here. We chose to come here and raise them in this environment. Aren't we responsible for making sure they learn who Allah is, who the Prophet ﷺ is, what is the Quran, what is the Sunnah? Who's responsible? We are. Now, let's talk about solution. So what do we do then? Homeschool or Islamic school? You have an answer? What's your answer? Homeschool or Islamic school? Islamic school, mashallah, mashallah. Islamic school. Yes, my respected brothers and sisters, if you can afford Islamic school, I'm telling you, if someone kidnapped your son, you would pay 100,000, 200,000, you would sell your house. You would sell your house, I'm telling you. You would sell your house to ransom your kid to come back. But you don't have $500 to pay for the Muslim school? Where you're not saving their life, you're saving their iman. That means you're saving them from the fire of Jahannam. How much is it worth? That's my question. It's not a very hard question. How much is it worth to save your child from the fire of Jahannam? How much are you willing to pay to save your child, your son, your daughter from the fire of Jahannam? Come on, tell me the answer. Anything you can afford. Jazakallah khairan. That's the right answer. Anything, if you ask me this question, I would say, anything I can afford, I am ready to pay if you can guarantee that this boy and this girl of mine will be saved from the fire of Jahannam. Don't you agree, my brothers and sisters? Yes. It's simple questions. I'm not asking you anything complex today. Very, very simple, straightforward questions. Now you might say, but for some reason you don't want to do that. Okay. Now tell me, what other options do we have? Yes, brother? Huh? What is that? Oh, migrate back. No, that won't work. No, migrating back wouldn't work. Let me tell you a few stories. In our life, we saw multiple parents when their kids started getting wings, and they realized that this son of mine is not in my control. He probably will go fly away somewhere. They said, you know what? We're going back. They packed the bags. They put their family. They had something back home, mashallah. So they took and flew. They flew. For how long? Until their children became 18 and 20 years old. Then, without telling the father, the 18-year-old, he saved some money. He got the first ticket, and he flew back here. Right? If you got the blue, you can always come back. So when they tried, where we went back, there is bribery, there is this, there is that, there is deception, there is trickery, and this and that. They come up with a lot of psychological explanations. This is why this country is not good. America is good. You don't have to pay someone bribe. You don't have to. Let's go back to America. You can earn a halal income there. And they fly back. They do some work in something initially to get themselves settled. Whatever work they do is halal, of course. But then they fall into the same cycle again. So migrating back is not an option. Tell me, if we say that we will not send our kids to the Islamic school, what other options do we have? We have to come up with options, my brothers. We cannot leave today without an option. We have come here not to have some nice dinner. We have come here today to find a solution for what we are going to do for our kids. And since we are nearing the end of time, we're going to be very quick now. We're going to move very fast, inshallah. Choose who their friends are. That would actually be ideal in a situation where they did not have the internet. With the internet, you could be playing with someone in China, in Japan, in Korea, in France, in Belgium, and you hear your son saying, "Hey, don't do this." Like, who are you talking to? I'm talking to Tom. Tom? Who's Tom? Oh, he's in Germany. Brother, you already said? Say it again. The mothers need to be educated. Yes, definitely. Control? Look at their friends? Yes, mashallah. Yeah, he's right. He was saying that same thing what you said. He said the friend circle. Make sure you're giving your kids a good friend circle. But that's controllable as long as you don't have this. Once you have this, you don't have control. Yeah, you cannot control this. You cannot. Be attached to the masjid, mashallah. We're getting close to the answer. Yes, brother? Take away, you think that's going to work? There's going to be a civil war too in the house. There's going to be a civil war, I'm telling you. After 3 years of Cold War and Civil War, then the electronics will come back in double amount. Before it was a Samsung, now it comes like an Apple. It's not going to work. After school program, Jazakallah khairan. Jazakallah khairan. Do you know what's the after school program is, brother? Islamic environment in the house. MashaAllah, that's a very important point. So, okay, let's stop the questions. Let me tell you something. Jazakallah. We're going to talk about this too. In America, if I was to ask you, what are the environments within mine and your control? Name them. Go ahead. What are the environments within our control? Our home. Number one is our home. And then? The masjid. Friend circle is not in control. Not if they have the internet. If they don't have internet, then it's in control. You can choose. But not with the internet. So the home, the masjid, what else? Islamic school, basically. Because you don't have control in the public school. I mean, we have numerous examples where they taught things to the sons and daughters. They confused them. They went to the counselor confused them even more. And then their son was doing Barbie dances, or their daughter was doing something very male. And then when the parents found out and they tried to try to fight the system, their children got taken into social service. It happened. So you don't have control over the public education, but you do have control over the Islamic school. So technically, we have only 3 places where we have some control. We have control over the house. We can try to make an effort to create an Islamic environment in the house. Number 2, we have control. If we send them to an Islamic school, then we have control over the Islamic school environment. And definitely we have control over the masjid environment. Right? Now, my question to you is, if we know that we only have 3 places where we have some control, how do we utilize these 3 resources and make sure we are doing the best that we can afford or we can manage for our kids? The very first thing is at home. Home is the first place of education, actually. People sometimes don't realize that. Because in America, what happens is we go into a money-making mindset. We feel that, okay, if my husband is working, but if I also work, maybe we can pay off the house quicker. And we are hoping that everyone has a halal loan. Yes? On the same page, yes. The husband and wife has to be on the same page. Are not on the same page. No, my respected brothers and sisters, this brother mentioned something very important. If the father and mother don't have the same idea regarding their kids' Islamic upbringing, I'm telling you that child is going to go to the parent that is more lenient. And they will start hating the other parent and they will start loving the other parent. The one that gives them the game, they will love. The one that spoils them, they will love. The one that is being stern for the betterment of the kid will hate. Sometimes we don't realize that. We realize that 20 years later. The day when they do something so horrible that either we lose our face in society or we lose a place to live in. Then we say, man, we made a mistake then. We shouldn't have done that. That's very important. So, let's summarize it. The very first point is we try to make an effort to create some Islam in our homes. It's very easy to do that, my respected brothers. First of all, at home we can perform our salah. That's very important, that no one at home can get away without performing salah. Number 1. But don't just be like a command and force them. Motivate them. If you look at the books of hadith, like Riyadus Salihin, Fadail A'mal, they have maybe 100 plus hadith which talks about the virtues of salah and the punishment you will get for not performing salah. That's much more powerful than telling a kid, yeah, you better pray. If you don't pray, I'll take off my shoes. Don't do that. Please. We came from an environment where there was 1,000 years of Islam into an environment which gives you freedom to do whatever you want, even to change your name from a male into a female. From such a strict environment, we came into so much freedom. You cannot say that you better do this or I'll do this. It's not going to work. I'm telling you it's not going to work. You can take my word for it. But don't test too long because you might lose your kid. So what do? Salah is very important. Establish salah in the house. Number 2, we say dhikr. Dhikr is recitation of Quran. Try to get the children to recite, especially those surahs which are to do with protection. Parts of Surah Kahf, Ayatul Kursi. The last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. Huwa Allahu alladhi la ilaha illahu. Hashar. The 38 juz or whatever you can do of 38 juz. Recite some Quran in the house. The third thing is motivation. Have and allocate some time in your house where you all sit as a family. Even you, please take away your phone also. Don't keep your phone there and be looking at your phone and say, yeah, read. Then your son will also be going like this, you also read. And everyone is reading, mashallah, they're reading their phone. They're not reading the book. So for that time that you choose and allocate for your house, that this is the time that we're going to give, allocate a time where all of you put away your phones and we sit down and we focus on what we are reading. Then we discuss, we ask questions that what did you understand? What did you understand? And then we end the day with at least learning one lesson. Okay, we learned that if you do this, Allah will give you so much. If you don't do this, this is a harm. That will change the life. We call this ta'aleem. This ta'aleem is very easy. It's not very hard. If we can have dinner together, we can do ta'aleem together. It's not very difficult. So if we do salah, we do some dhikr and we do ta'aleem, I believe that we will be changing the environment of the house. Now, let's go to the other 2 environments. Islamic school, of course, alhamdulillah, I think we are building the Islamic school. So if anyone can afford the Islamic school, please do that. If you can't afford the Islamic school and you have the education to do homeschooling, you may do homeschooling. You know, in America, I think about 15 to 20% of Americans, they actually homeschool their kids. You know that, right? 15 to 20% Americans, not immigrants, Americans. They've been in America for maybe a couple of hundred years, Americans. They actually homeschool their kids because they don't want their kids to go to the public school. And the parents, they say that if my child has a very strong personality, maybe I'll let him go. Then he will not, become, a boy will not become a girl will not become a boy. He has very strong personality. He knows who he is. But if they have a kid who has a weak personality, Allah has created everyone differently. They say that we will never send that kid to school. We will do homeschooling. So consider that. If you say that even homeschooling we cannot do, then this is the third and the very minimum option that you could do. And that's why I have this here. Let me tell you one story, and then inshallah we'll wrap up today's program with that one story, inshallah. You see, Muslims migrated to England in the 1940s to work in the textile industry. Textile. A lot of factories in those days. Once they reached England, because they had come from a background, many of the Muslims came from a background where they had something called the maktab system. The maktab system was usually, in those days, where the kids would come to the masjid for Fajr. They would stay for about an hour or so and read some Quran and some Islamic studies, mostly Quran. And then they would come home, change their clothes, go to school. They would come back from school, change their clothes, eat some lunch, and then come back to the masjid and stay for another 1 hour and something. Again, studying mostly Quran and some Islamic studies. And then they would go home. So 2 times a day, morning and evening, they would come to the masjid. So they would start their day in the masjid. They would end their day, kids. So the Muslims who went from such a background to England, they realized that if we don't replicate that system in England, then we will not have a Muslim child 20 years down the line. So as they pulled their money together to build the masjid, they telegrammed, because in those days you had no phone, they telegrammed wherever they came from, and they said, send the first teacher on the next ship, or the plane, whatever they could afford. So the teacher came and they started putting their kids with the teacher. And then that became the beginning of the after-school program, which is the maktab program, or they call it madrasa in England, 50 years ago, 70 years ago, 1950s. By 1960s, these masjids had come to a structured program. Although they were teaching mostly in a different language, not in English. They were teaching the Islamic studies in a different language. Maybe the language they learned back home. But then by 1970s, they actually came up with the first English curriculum, which came from South Africa. By 1994, they had come with a very structured curriculum, which came from South Africa too, which was from kindergarten till 12th grade, which had about 5 subjects, 5 separate books, the course book and workbook incorporated into one book. Today, if you go to England or South Africa, you will be amazed to see that 95 to 98% of the Muslim population, their children during 5 p.m. to 7:15 p.m., they are not home. Tell me, where are they? They're in the madrasa, yes, the maktab, mashallah. They're in the madrasa. And the culture has become so strong that within that time, if anyone is sitting at home, within that 2 hour, 15 minutes time, if anyone is sitting at home, then even that family feels that we are doing something wrong. Because the pressure of going to the masjid is so strong. And you're probably wondering, what are they teaching? Let me just give you like a glimpse of what they're teaching. Look. This is one of the curriculum which is quite common. I think about 800 masjids in England are currently using this curriculum. So look at this curriculum. Can you see the subjects? Fiqh, hadith, seerah, tarikh, aqaid, akhlaq, adab. They have from kindergarten till 8th grade. I'm going to open the book and show you actually. So this is the curriculum of fiqh from grade 1 to grade 8. What they will learn in fiqh. So they start from the basics of Islam, like the 5 pillars of Islam, and in 8th grade, they're actually covering the topic of nikah. Whether you can have a relationship before marriage, who can you marry, who you cannot marry, what is halal, what is haram. They're learning even business, transactions, gambling, interest, all these things, what is halal, they're actually learning that. And of course, in 6th grade, when they become mature, they learn the issues of maturity as well. They learn about 85 hadith. They learn the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They learn his shama'il, his description. They learn the Khulafai Rashidin. They learn about the lives of the mothers of the believers, that the Ummahatul Mu'mineen. They learn about the stories of the prophets, and also they learn about the recent Islamic history, the Banu Umayyah. I'm not sure if you know. Do you know Banu Umayyah? Banu Umayyah is basically who? Who is Banu Umayyah? Is basically Yazid and his children, right? Yazid and his family. They were the son of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. That's Banu Umayyah. Then you have Banu Abbas. They were all Muslim leaderships. They ran the Muslim world for years. Then you had the Muslims in Spain. Few hundred years Muslims ruled Spain. Then you had the Mughals who ruled India. They were Muslims. Then you have Spain, Muslims in Spain, Andalusia. Then you have the Muslims in Turkey, the Ottoman Empire. My brothers, even we adults do not know our history. We have a very strong history. We are the history that changed the world. We brought justice where there was no justice. We brought equality where there was no equality. We gave women rights when the women had no right to even voice their opinion. They had no rights to vote. They were treated as an object. Islam brought that. We have to know our history if we want to be proud about our religion. Anyway, then you have Aqidah, which is the most important aspect. Our kids are being attacked. What type of attack are they going through? They go through an attack. I'm not going to advise them. If I advise them, I don't want our kids to get confused. But they question Allah, they question Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they question verses of the Quran, they question Sahih Hadith, to the extent that they question that which religion is true, what proof do you have that this is true and it's not true? And I'm not making up anything, my respected brothers and sisters, I'm telling you the exact reality that is going on in our society. Whether we want to keep our eyes closed, we can keep it closed. But please wake up before it's too late. Then you have akhlaq, Islamic character. There's 40 characteristics, etiquette, for example, respecting others, sharing, kindness, kinship, pride, envy, backbiting, reliance on Allah, protecting the gaze. And then you have etiquettes of eating, drinking, sleeping, speaking, going to the masjid, the books and everything, etiquettes of doing different activities. So this is the curriculum that they're learning, and we are lucky actually that Al-Furqan, they're going to be implementing this very, very soon. So, as I said, the minimum, if you are unable to send them to the full-time Islamic school, the minimum is make sure that your child is enrolled in the after-school program. The flyers can be seen outside when you leave, inshallah, you can pick them up. Please make sure. You might ask me, what is the goal? You know what the goal is? The goal is to keep our kids in the environment. For how long? How long? Tell me. Huh? Till they die, mashallah. Forever? Tell me something more practical. How long? Huh? 18? As long as we can. Absolutely. If we say that we brought our kid to the after school because we want them to read the Quran and they finish reading the Quran, we take them out. Do you know what happens? You want to know what happens? There are many hafiz of Quran in America, many, not one. They have lost Islam. They have memorized the whole Quran by heart. Then they left Islam in America. Why? When they went back to high school, after becoming hafiz, then different thoughts came into their mind. And then it confused them. And they had no outlet, no answer. And then they left Islam. So we lost what is most valuable to us after making them a hafiz of Quran. So my respected brothers and sisters, please do not have this concept taken out from your head today. Your kid is not here to finish reading the Quran. Your kid is here to be in the environment for, what's the answer? The answer is as long as we can. If we can keep them here until they're 15, 15, 18, 18, 25, 25. I'm telling you, we have ample curriculum. Don't worry about the curriculum. I showed you something very simple. This is just an 8-year program, but curriculum you have all the way up to 10th grade, 12th grade. There's enough curriculum. Don't worry about it. If your kids keep on coming, we, inshallah, will be able to provide them intellectually and spiritually the resource they need to keep themselves busy and not feel bored. So that is the goal. What is the goal? What is the goal? The goal is keep them in the masjid environment as long as you can. Now let me tell you a few basic benefits. Number one, they will build an attachment and connection with the house of Allah. They will build a connection and attachment with the house of Allah because they were coming here in the prime time of their life 5 days a week and they were here for 2-3 hours. I have seen with my own eyes kids who came in the after school program at the age of 5. By the age of 14, 15, they left the program. But then whenever there was any event in the masjid, those kids and their classmates, the kids they studied with, they all come back. And they're volunteering with the food, they're volunteering with everything, young kids. And then you look at that masjid and say, brother, this masjid has a future. If these kids are here in the masjid and they are running around, they're the ones feeding the people, they're the ones trying to get everyone to sit down and everything, youngsters, then you know that this masjid has a future. So you connect them with the house of Allah, you connect them with something which is, remember you were telling me, control their friend circle. Do you know how to control their friend circle? By throwing them, yes, raise your hands. Answer. Ask them, mashallah. It's a good thing. When you have dinner with them, please do ask them that how did your day go? And what did you do the whole day? Who did you speak with? Who's your friend? And stuff like that. Ask them. It's a very good thing, mashallah, mashallah, mashallah. And they reward you. So, when you connect them with the masjid, then which kids come to the masjid? Tell me. The kids whose parents are concerned about them, yes or no? Yes or no? Yes, right? The kids whose parents are actually concerned. So, all the good kids of the community are actually in the masjid. So when your child is with these good kids of the masjid, year after year, who do you think becomes their friend? These kids. So without even realizing, you have given your kids a good friend circle. And the hadith is hadith. النَّاسُ عَلَى دِينِ خَلِيلِهِ فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدُكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ. A man is on the religion of his friends. Make sure you see or you pay attention to who the person's friend is. And finally, the third thing, they're not just coming here and playing basketball, right? They're coming here to learn Islam according to their intellectual capacity, because you have grade by grade. So as they're growing older, you're giving them something more challenging. So you're actually giving them the ability to integrate Islam as a religion into their lives, because you're giving them consistency. So the teacher can give them a lesson and can ask them questions. If they come with questions to the teacher, they can actually answer back. And that they can ask the teacher's question, the teacher can answer, the teacher can ask, and they can answer. So you know what's going on in their minds, and you are relieving and releasing any burden that they may have in their hearts. So what do you say, my respected brothers and sisters? Do we agree that we need this program and we will participate in the program, inshallah? Remember what I said, right? Home environment. If you can afford the Islamic school, please do that. That's the best investment you could make. One parent, he said that I spent $500 behind my child's education for how many years? For about 12 years. And then my son got married to one of the Muslim girls in the school, and he left the house. So I don't know why I paid so much money for. So the guy he asked the question to, the person said, brother, your investment was so worth it. They were like, what are you talking about? He left. He was like, listen, if he was in public school, do you think he would leave with the Fatima and Aisha? Or he would leave with a Nancy and a Karen? Tell me, answer. Did you understand my question? If he was in a public school, this son was in a public school, would he run away and elope with a Fatima or a Aisha or with a Nancy and Karen? Who would he run away with? You get my point? That means that your few $1,000s you spend behind your son, because of that, your grandchildren will stay Muslims because both of them are Muslims and they were both in Islamic school. Whatever they do, they will know what they're doing is haram. They will get married and you'll have, inshallah, they will save their kids. You get my point? So I'm talking about Islamic school, which is not very strict. Even then, this is the minimum benefit you get, right? Of course, if you focus on the quality, you do the tarbiyah, you do the proper parda, everything is maintained, then you'll have much more quality. So again, home environment, Islamic school, home school, and after school. Inshallah, we combine this all and we will have lots of growth, inshallah. Inshallah? Yes, Sheikh? Sheikh Haris said something very important. He said, not everyone can afford an Islamic school, but every single parent can do a homeschooling. So if we actually, this is something to work on. If we have some educated sisters in the community who can actually successfully do a homeschooling model in their house, they can actually do workshops for the other sisters, other mothers of the community, and teach them how to do it with their kids. But remember, the bare minimum, please do not tell me that, okay, I will send them to Sunday school. I'm telling you, in Sunday school, every single sheikh I've talked with, they said that the first half an hour to 1 hour, it goes just getting the rust out of the system. The first 1 hour of Sunday school goes getting the rust out of the system, means just getting them to calm down and listen to what I'm saying. And then you want me to teach them all these subjects? It's not possible. If you try to teach a surah, your time is up. If you try to teach a dua, your time is up. If you try to teach even salah, your time is up. And this kid might not even believe in Allah, you're teaching him salah. You understand? So anyway, inshallah, may Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand the whole discussion today. I apologize if I went lengthier. I actually wanted to give time for dinner before salah, but it looks like we'll have it after salah, inshallah. So we can call the adhan, inshallah, and then we'll have salah at 10 o'clock, right, inshallah? Anything else? Okay. So there is a banner outside regarding the programs. So after salah, if you have questions, we'll be here. If you have questions for the programs, you can go to the banner. There are some brothers there. They'll answer your questions, inshallah. And we have, I believe, some sisters upstairs who can help also, inshallah. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullah. Who's giving the adhan?
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله